Captain Elias Rowe had seen many things in his life. He had piloted starships through nebula storms, negotiated fragile peace treaties with alien species, and faced dangers that most people only read about in history books. Yet, despite all that experience, he had never expected to feel this nervous as he stepped into the quiet corridors of Elysium Station. Elysium was not a grand city in the way planets were grand. It was a floating hub, orbiting a pale blue star, built for practicality rather than luxury. Its walls were smooth metal, polished to a faint glow by the reflection of starlight through the wide observation windows. The hum of machinery filled the background, constant and soothing to those who had grown accustomed to it. Elias walked slowly, letting his eyes take in the familiar sights. The station was bustling yet calm. Drones zipped along the ceiling, delivering supplies. Scientists and diplomats moved between labs and conference rooms, speaking in a dozen different languages. Some human, some alien. It was home, but after months in deep space, it also felt strange and small. He was returning from a mission to chart the outer edges of the Percy Expanse, a region of space considered too dangerous for ordinary exploration. He had encountered radiation storms, rogue asteroids, and one particularly aggressive creature that resembled a cross between a squid and a starfish, floating in zero gravity. Against all odds, he had survived and brought back crucial data for humanity. But today, his thoughts were not on the mission. They were on her. He first noticed Leora in the observation lounge. She was standing by the window, looking out at the stars with a calm expression. Elias did not recognize her at first. She looked human, tall, slender, with dark hair that fell in soft waves over her shoulders. Her eyes were a pale green, unusually bright under the artificial light. There was something in the way she carried herself, a mixture of grace and curiosity, that made her seem almost different. Elias approached slowly, trying not to startle her. "Hello," he said, keeping his voice casual, though his heart beat faster than usual. She turned her head and smiled faintly. "Hello," she replied. Her voice was melodic, soft, and carried a note of genuine curiosity that made Elias uneasy in the best way. "I haven't seen you around the station before," he said, glancing at the badges on her uniform. "None." That was unusual. Everyone on Elysium wore a badge identifying their role. "I'm new," she said simply. Her green eyes met his, and he noticed for the first time the faint shimmer beneath her skin, like sunlight on water. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable, but it made her look alive in a way that humans often did not. Elias nodded, unsure of what to say next. Before he could think of something appropriate, she asked, almost shyly, "Is there room in your bed?" The words hung in the air, simple, but loaded with strange weight. Elias blinked. His mind scrambled to interpret them. Was she asking about accommodations? A literal place to sleep on the station? Or was it something else? He decided to answer carefully. "There's always room for someone who needs rest," he said finally, keeping his tone neutral. "Why do you ask?" She looked down at her hands, fingers twisting nervously. "I just wondered if someone could stay without leaving." Her voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. Elias felt a strange tug at his chest. He had faced countless dangers in the galaxy, yet something about this moment made him hesitate. Humans were unpredictable. Yes, but she was something else, entirely. Not fully human, perhaps, but curious, intelligent, and lonely. He studied her for a moment. "And if you stayed?" he asked gently. "What would you want to do?" She smiled faintly. "Learn. Explore. Be part of something real. I don't want to just exist. I want to live." Elias felt a mixture of awe and caution. There was a part of him that wanted to protect her, to ensure she could experience the world safely. But there was also a part that wondered if this was a trap, some new technology, some experiment he hadn't been told about. I see, he said finally. Well, Elysium can be welcoming, if you know where to look. He gestured toward the lounge's seating area, inviting her to sit. They sat in silence for a few moments, the stars outside stretching endlessly into blackness. Elias observed her quietly. There was a fluidity to her movements, a subtle grace that humans rarely possessed. Yet there was also a raw curiosity, a need to understand, that reminded him of why humanity had spread among the stars in the first place. You're not human, he said finally, more as a statement than a question. She tilted her head, as if considering this carefully. No, she admitted. Not fully. But I'm learning. I want to understand. Elias nodded slowly. He knew what that meant. Over the years, he had encountered many beings, created or altered to serve specific purposes, some for diplomacy, some for labor, and some for research. Most were restricted, confined, or limited in thought and emotion. But she seemed different. She was not a machine, and she was not fully human. She was something new. A bridge between what humanity was and what it could become. Then you'll need guidance, he said, deciding to trust his instincts. Life isn't just surviving. It's learning, making choices, and sometimes failing. Are you ready for that? She nodded, her eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and fear. I want to try. Elias smiled faintly. There was bravery in that, a courage that he recognized instantly. Humans were brave not because they were strong or fast, but because they were willing to step into the unknown. This being, whatever she truly was, had chosen to take that step. For the first time in weeks, Elias felt a spark of hope. Perhaps this encounter was more than chance. Perhaps it was a beginning. I can help you, he said. But you need to understand one thing. Elysium is not a safe place. There are rules. And some beings will not accept your differences. She looked at him seriously. I don't want to be accepted. I want to belong. That's different. Elias chuckled softly. Belonging is harder than acceptance, he said. But maybe that's what makes it worth trying. For the next few hours, they walked through the station together. Elias showed her the observation decks. The gardens where oxygen-producing plants glowed under artificial lights, and the quiet halls where humans and aliens alike came to reflect. Leora absorbed everything, asking questions, noting details, and sometimes just watching the stars in silence. By the time night cycles came, Elias realized that he had not once felt bored or distracted. There was a novelty to this being, a freshness that reminded him why humanity reached for the stars in the first place. Curiosity, courage, hope, qualities that no technology could replicate, qualities that defined humans, and, perhaps, could now define her too. Finally, they reached his quarters. The small living area was modest but comfortable, with a bed, a desk, and a window, looking out at a distant gas giant. Leora looked around, her expression thoughtful. This is home? She asked softly. It will be, if you want it to be, Elias replied. You can stay here as long as you need. She paused, then smiled a smile that was faint but genuine. Then maybe I will stay, she said. Elias felt a weight lift from his shoulders. There was danger ahead. Of that he was certain. But for now, in this quiet corner of the galaxy, something remarkable was beginning. Somewhere between human courage and something entirely new, they had found a connection. And that connection, fragile as it might be, was enough to light a spark in the cold, endless dark of space. The next morning, sunlight, or the artificial equivalent carefully tuned to mimic Earth's dawn, filtered through the observation windows of Elysium Station. Captain Elias Rowe had been awake for hours, staring at the star charts that sprawled across his desk. But sleep eluded him. Not because of mission data or star maps, but because of Leora. She had stayed the night, quietly, with no complaint and no demand. Her presence was calming, yet there was a tension in the air. Elias could feel it, the weight of her question from the night before. What if you wanted to stay forever? On. He heard soft footsteps behind him. Turning, he saw Leora standing in the doorway, hands clasped nervously. Her hair was slightly disheveled, and her eyes, a striking pale green, were fixed on him with a mixture of curiosity and hesitation. "Good morning," Elias said cautiously, trying to keep his voice calm. "Good morning," she replied, her tone almost human in its warmth. "I want to understand more. About humans. About life here." Elias leaned back in his chair, studying her. He had already noticed that she was no ordinary being. Her movements were fluid. Her expressions subtle but meaningful. There was intelligence in every glance, every gesture. But this was more than that. She seemed to feel, to want. And that was unusual, for someone or something like her. "You're asking a lot," he said finally. "Not everyone can handle the answers." "I can," she said firmly. Her determination caught him off guard. Most beings designed to interact with humans were limited in scope, confined to pre-programmed responses. Leora, however, was evolving. That realization was both thrilling and worrying. "Very well," Elias said. "We'll start small. Do you understand what curiosity is?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. But I want to feel it. Not just understand it. I want to experience it." Elias smiled faintly. That was a very human desire, the need not just to know, but to experience. It was what drove humans to explore space, to build, to create, to risk their lives for something uncertain. "Then we'll begin," he said. "Curiosity isn't just asking questions. It's about noticing details, seeing connections, and sometimes making mistakes." Leora tilted her head, absorbing every word. "Mistakes?" she asked. "Yes," Elias said. "Mistakes are how humans learn. They're not always bad. They're part of growth. Without them, life is flat. Without mistakes, humans don't grow, and the world becomes smaller." She considered this, her eyes flicking to the stars outside. "I want to grow," she said softly. Elias felt a pang of hope. Perhaps she could. Perhaps she could become more than the sum of her programming. For the next few hours, Elias introduced Leora to the small routines of life on Elysium Station. He showed her the hydroponic gardens, where plants grew in perfect rows, glowing faintly under the artificial sun. He guided her through the observation decks, where scientists and diplomats paused to marvel at distant stars. He even brought her to the station's archives, a vast library of human knowledge spanning centuries. Leora absorbed everything. She asked questions with precision, sometimes repeating phrases to understand them fully. "Why do humans write stories?" She asked at one point, running her fingers along the digital pages of a historical record. "To remember," Elias explained. "To share experiences. Stories help humans connect, even across generations and worlds." She paused, thoughtful. "So, stories are more than facts. They are feelings?" "Yes," he said. "Exactly." For a moment, she looked distant, as if contemplating something far beyond the walls of the station. I want to feel that," she said quietly. "To know the depth of life." Elias realized that Leora was not just asking about knowledge. She was asking about humanity itself, its joys, its sorrows, its complexity. And she wanted to experience it. Later, while they walked through one of the quieter sections of the station, Elias noticed a subtle change in Leora. She hesitated at a door marked "Restricted." He stopped her gently. "You shouldn't go there," he said. "Why not?" she asked, tilting her head. Elias shook his head. Some things are not meant for everyone. Some knowledge is dangerous if you're not ready. You need guidance to handle it. She looked at him, eyes wide, searching for honesty. I trust you, she said softly. That simple phrase struck Elias. Trust was rare, even among humans. For a being who was not fully human to place that trust in him, it was both humbling and inspiring. You have a lot to learn, he said, but I will teach you. And so he did. Over the next few days, Elias guided Leora through human customs. Simple things at first. How to eat. How to speak naturally. Even how to laugh at a joke. Then, gradually, he introduced more complex lessons. Why humans create art. Why they explore the unknown. Why they form bonds with one another, even when it's risky. Leora absorbed it all, often mimicking his expressions and reactions. Yet, even as she learned, she began to show originality. She asked questions he hadn't expected, made observations that were insightful, and even disagreed when she thought his reasoning was incomplete. Elias realized something profound. She was no longer just learning. She was thinking, independently. She was alive in a way that was entirely new. But not everyone on Elysium Station was pleased with Leora's presence. One afternoon, while Elias and Leora were walking near the docking bay, a high-ranking official approached them. Commander Vera, a strict woman known for her dedication to protocol, looked at Leora with a mixture of suspicion and distaste. Captain Rowe, she said, voice sharp. I've been informed of a situation involving this being. She gestured to Leora. Explain her presence here. Elias straightened. She is not a threat. She is learning about humanity. She is different, yes, but she is curious and eager to understand. Commander Vera's eyes narrowed. Different is dangerous. You know the rules. Non-human entities like this are not to interact freely with civilians. Their programming can fail. Their behavior can be unpredictable. Unquote. We found.com. We have the programming top-down well. She is evolving, Elias said firmly. She is not dangerous. She is learning just as humans do. Vera shook her head. Evolution, without control, leads to chaos. I recommend immediate reassignment to a controlled facility. Leora stepped forward, her voice steady. I am not a threat. I want to stay. I want to learn. I want to live. 2-3. Elias felt a surge of pride. She spoke with courage, the same courage he had seen in countless humans facing impossible odds. She has a right to choose her own path, he said, and I will ensure she has the chance to do so safely. Vera looked between them, assessing the situation. Finally, she nodded, though not without warning. Very well. But be aware, Captain. If anything goes wrong, the responsibility is yours. As she left, Elias exhaled slowly. Leora turned to him, her green eyes filled with gratitude and determination. You believe in me, she said softly. I believe in what you can become, he replied. And that is more important than anything else. That evening, Elias and Leora returned to his quarters. The room was quiet, the only sound the soft hum of the station's engines. She sat by the window, staring at the stars as if they held the answers to all her questions. You're not like any human I've met, Elias said gently. You are learning from humans, but you are also something beyond us. That's remarkable. Leora smiled faintly. And you are teaching me. Not just knowledge, but life itself. That is remarkable too. Elias felt a warmth spread through his chest. Humanity had always been defined by its ability to create, to explore, to care for one another. Perhaps, he thought, Leora represented the next step, a being who could carry that spirit into new frontiers. Tomorrow, he said, we begin a new lesson, one that cannot be learned from books or databanks, one that requires action. Leora looked at him expectantly. What kind of lesson? Elias smiled. The kind that shows what humans are really capable of. The kind that proves why we belong among the stars. Live. Livers, mouse. Livers. She nodded, her determination shining brightly. I'm ready. Elias knew then that this was only the beginning. Humanity had always faced challenges that tested courage, empathy, and ingenuity. And now, with Leora by his side, they would face them together, human, and something more, united by curiosity, trust, and the unyielding desire to live fully in a vast, endless universe. For the first time in a long while, Elias felt that same spark of hope he had felt when he first returned to Elysium Station. Life, in all its unpredictable beauty, was about to begin anew. Elias woke to the faint vibrations of Elysium Station's engines. The hum was familiar, almost comforting. But today, it did little to calm him. Leora was already awake, sitting by the observation window, her green eyes tracing the stars with intense focus. Captain, she said softly, turning toward him. There is something I do not understand. Why are some humans afraid of me? Elias sighed and joined her by the window. Fear comes from the unknown, he explained. You are different. People see things they do not understand, and often react with suspicion. It is not right, but it is human. She looked troubled. But I am not dangerous. I only want to learn. I know, he said. And I will protect you. But you must be careful. Not everyone will see you as I do. The warning felt heavier than usual because Elias already knew the danger that awaited. Elysium Station's governing body, the Directorate, had strict rules for beings like Leora hybrids, advanced creations designed to mimic human traits. Their presence outside laboratories or controlled areas was tightly restricted. Anyone caught disobeying these rules risked severe punishment. And Leora had disobeyed by choosing to explore freely. Later that morning, Elias received an urgent communication from Directorate Central. The message was clear and chilling. Leora was to be returned to the research division immediately, citing behavioral irregularities and potential risk to station security. He clenched his fists. He had anticipated resistance, but not so soon. Leora's growth and curiosity had already drawn attention, and now the consequences were unavoidable. He entered his quarters where Leora waited. She noticed his expression. Something wrong? They know, he said quietly. The Directorate wants you back in the labs. They consider you dangerous. Her face paled, though she did not speak immediately. Then, softly, she said, I thought I could stay. I thought I could learn. You can, Elias reassured her. But we have to act carefully. If they take you by force, there's no guarantee you'll come back the same. I won't let that happen. 1. If you can trench Deseto. She looked at him with a mixture of fear and trust. What do we do? What? We escape, he said. We leave the station before they can intervene. Planning an escape from Elysium Station was no small task. The station was designed for efficiency and surveillance. Security drones patrolled every corridor, and biometric scanners monitored nearly every door. To move without detection, Elias and Leora had to be careful, precise, and creative. Elias outlined the plan. They would use a maintenance shuttle, one small enough to avoid radar detection, and exit through an older docking bay that was rarely used. Leora would need to trust him completely. Not just follow instructions, but anticipate obstacles as a team. This will be dangerous, he warned. If anything goes wrong, we could be caught, or worse. I understand, she said firmly. I trust you. That trust, simple as it sounded, gave Elias courage. Humans had always relied on trust between soldiers, explorers, friends, and strangers alike. Trust could save lives, and now it would guide their steps through a station that was slowly turning against them. As night fell, they made their move. Elias led Leora through maintenance corridors that smelled faintly of oil and metal. The lights were dim, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. Occasionally, a security drone passed, its sensors scanning for unauthorized movement. They froze, hearts pounding, until the drone moved on. "You are very still," Leora whispered. "Humans learn to be patient," Elias said softly. "Sometimes, survival depends on waiting and watching." They reached the docking bay, a small area normally used for cargo shuttles. The maintenance shuttle they had chosen was modest and outdated, but it would serve their purpose. Elias guided Leora inside. "This is our lifeline," he said, checking the controls. "Once we launch, we have to navigate through uncharted space. There are risks, asteroids, radiation fields, gravitational anomalies, but we'll rely on our skills and intuition. That is what makes us human." Leora nodded, her expression resolute. "Then let us go. Create." The launch was tense. Elias maneuvered the shuttle carefully, avoiding surveillance satellites and sensor grids. Each movement required precision and calm, and each second felt like an eternity. Leora assisted where she could, her programming now enhanced by the lessons Elias had taught her: anticipation, observation, problem-solving. Together, they moved through the station's outer rings, dodging patrol drones and automated defenses. At one point, a sudden alarm echoed through the shuttle's communication system. A directorate drone had detected their escape. Elias acted instinctively, rerouting power to the engines and manually overriding the docking bay locks. "Hold on!" he shouted. Leora gripped the seat beside him, her green eyes wide but steady. With a shudder and a burst of energy, the shuttle broke free of Elysium Station's orbit. They were in open space, surrounded by the endless black, dotted with stars. Elias exhaled, relief mixing with adrenaline. "We're clear," he said, glancing at Leora. She smiled faintly. "We made it." Elias nodded. Though he knew their journey was only beginning, Elysium's sensors had already likely tracked them. The Directorate would not stop searching. They had to stay ahead, relying on skill, intuition, and each other. As they traveled deeper into uncharted space, Elias took a moment to teach Leora about the hazards they would face. Nebulas could hide them from sensors but also carry deadly radiation. Asteroids could be used as cover, but collisions were fatal. Even the light of distant stars could interfere with navigational instruments. "It's not just about moving," he explained. "It's about understanding space, predicting it, respecting it. That is what humans do. That is why we survive." Leora listened intently, absorbing every detail. But more than that, she began to show initiative, suggesting alternate routes and scanning for patterns in sensor data. She was learning in a way that went beyond training. She was thinking independently. "Captain," she said after a pause, "I think I understand. Humans do not survive by strength alone. They survive by awareness, creativity, and trust. And hope." Elias smiled, impressed. "Exactly." She looked at him, her expression earnest. "Then maybe we can survive together." Days passed as they navigated through uncharted regions. Cosmic phenomena tested their courage and ingenuity. They passed through a dense asteroid field, dodging massive rocks with skillful maneuvers. They drifted near a glowing nebula, marveling at colors that were impossible to describe fully, even with Elias's vast experience. Each obstacle strengthened their bond. Elias realized that Leora's presence was changing him. He was not just guiding her, she was pushing him to be more thoughtful, more creative, more human. Humanity had always thrived on challenge and exploration, and now, Together, they embodied that spirit in its purest form. One evening, as they rested near a quiet star, Leora turned to him. "Captain, I feel different, alive in a way I did not before. Is this what it means to live?" Elias studied her, recognizing the same awe he had felt as a child gazing at Earth's oceans for the first time. "Yes," he said softly. "This is life. It is discovery, connection, and courage. It is risk and reward. And it is exactly what makes humans human." Leora nodded, her eyes shining. "Then I am glad I chose to stay with you. I am glad I chose to live." Elias felt a warmth in his chest. Humans had always been defined by courage, empathy, and the desire to explore. And now, he realized, Leora had chosen those qualities too, not because she was programmed, but because she wanted them. That was remarkable. That was hope. That was humanity. But even as they shared this quiet moment, Elias knew the danger was far from over. The Directorate would not give up easily. Their mission had shifted from simple survival to proving that humanity's qualities, courage, trust, creativity, were enough to protect and nurture life, even in a being unlike any they had ever seen. Elias tightened his grip on the shuttle controls, determination in his eyes. They were far from safety, but they were alive. And in the vast, unforgiving expanse of space, that was enough. With Leora by his side, he felt certain of one thing. Together, they could face anything. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a universe of possibilities waiting to be explored. And humanity, in the form of courage, intellect, and heart, was ready. The shuttle drifted silently through the void of uncharted space. Outside, stars stretched in all directions, distant points of light in the endless black. Captain Elias Rowe sat at the controls, eyes sharp, scanning the sensors for any sign of danger. Beside him, Leora monitored their systems, her green eyes reflecting both curiosity and determination. They had left Elysium Station behind, but the Directorate's reach was not gone. Elias knew that even in this remote region, automated patrol satellites could be tracking them. Every decision they made now had to be precise. "Captain," Leora said after a moment of silence, "what happens if we are discovered?" Elias did not answer immediately. He studied the star charts projected on the console. "Then we rely on skill, intuition, and trust. That is what humans do. That is why we survive." She nodded, though he could see the tension in her shoulders. She was learning, adapting, but the reality of danger was not easy to face. "Don't worry," Elias said softly. "We've come this far. Together, we can handle what comes next." Her eyes met his, full of confidence, and for the first time, Elias felt a deep sense of hope. The next few days tested them in ways they could not have anticipated. Space was beautiful, yes, but it was also unforgiving. They navigated through a dense asteroid field, the shuttle weaving between massive rocks with skillful precision. Leora watched, fascinated, her mind working to understand patterns and trajectories. "Captain," she said, pointing at the radar, "if we adjust our angle by 3.2 degrees, we can avoid that cluster and reduce our velocity by 15%. It will save fuel and reduce risk." Elias smiled, impressed. She was no longer just following instructions, she was thinking creatively, adapting in real time. That initiative, that spark of ingenuity, was exactly what made humans unique. And now, in some ways, she shared it. "Do it," he said. "Let's see if your calculations hold." The shuttle shifted smoothly, slipping through the asteroid field with minimal strain on the engines. Leora's expression brightened. "It worked," she whispered. "We're safe." Elias laughed softly. "Yes, thanks to you." Their journey continued, taking them near a glowing nebula, a swirling cloud of gas and light that seemed alive with color. Elias had navigated nebulae before, but this one was different. Its electromagnetic interference made instruments unreliable. "Captain," Leora said, "the instruments are failing. We need to navigate visually." Elias nodded. "Then we trust our eyes, our instincts, and the patterns we know." "Ready?" "Yes," she said, gripping the edge of the console. For hours, they maneuvered through the nebula, relying on visual cues and intuition. Leora called out observations, subtle changes in the light, variations in density, small gravitational pulls, while Elias adjusted the shuttle's path accordingly. Together, they moved as a team, human and hybrid, blending logic, creativity, and courage. When they finally emerged, the stars beyond the nebula looked brighter than ever. Elias exhaled, a mixture of relief and pride flooding him. "You did well," he said. "So did you," Leora replied. "We did it together." Elias realized then that this was more than survival. It was cooperation, trust, and shared effort. The very qualities that had allowed humanity to thrive across the galaxy. And now, he saw them in her. As they traveled deeper into uncharted space, Elias and Leora encountered remnants of ancient civilizations, derelict ships, abandoned stations, and artifacts of unknown origin. Each discovery was a lesson in history, science, and human resilience. "Captain," Leora said one day, examining the hull of a broken ship floating silently. "These beings, they were explorers like us, but they failed." "Yes," Elias said, running his fingers over the ship's damaged exterior. "Exploration is dangerous. Some do not survive. But the risk is what drives humans. It is what makes life meaningful." Leora nodded, absorbing the lesson. She seemed to understand more than the words themselves. She was beginning to grasp the essence of human courage, the willingness to face the unknown despite fear. "You are teaching me about humans," she said softly. "But I want to learn more. About yourself, your feelings, your choices." Elias chuckled lightly. "Feelings are complicated. Humans are full of contradictions. We fear, we hope, we fail, and we try again. And sometimes, we care about things bigger than ourselves." Leora looked at him intently. "I want to understand that. I want to care. Truly." Elias felt a warmth in his chest. That desire to care, to connect, was what made humans special. And she wanted that too, not because she was programmed to, but because she chose to. One night, as they rested near a quiet star, Elias and Leora shared a rare moment of calm. The shuttle floated silently, instruments quiet, the vast emptiness of space surrounding them. Leora stared at the stars, her expression thoughtful. "Captain," she said after a long pause, "why do humans risk so much? Why do you leave safety behind?" Elias considered her question carefully. "Because life is bigger than safety," he said finally. "Humans want to see, to know, to create. We want to understand the universe and our place in it. Without risk, there is no growth, no discovery, no meaning." She nodded slowly, absorbing every word. "Then I understand why I want to stay with you. I want to experience that. I want to grow, not just survive." Elias looked at her, admiration and pride mingling in his gaze. Humanity had always been defined by courage and curiosity. Now, in some ways, Leora embodied those same traits. She was learning not just to exist, but to live. Days turned into weeks as they navigated through uncharted space. They encountered cosmic storms, gravitational anomalies, and strange energy fields that distorted their instruments. Each challenge required teamwork, quick thinking, and trust. Through it all, Leora continued to learn and adapt. She calculated trajectories, managed power distribution, and even suggested alternate routes through dangerous sectors. Elias marveled at her ingenuity. She was no longer just a hybrid observing humans. She was becoming a partner, a co-explorer, in the truest sense. "You are incredible," he said one evening as they passed a cluster of distant stars. "You have the mind of a human, and the capacity for something even more." Leora smiled faintly. "And you. You have taught me courage, patience, and hope. I am grateful." Elias felt a rare sense of satisfaction. Humanity had always been defined by its ability to teach, guide, and inspire. And now, he saw that legacy continuing in someone not fully human, but fully alive. Their journey was not without moments of doubt. At times, Elias wondered if they would ever find safety, if the Directorate would eventually catch up, or if space itself would claim them. But each time, Leora's determination renewed his resolve. She was learning, yes, but she was also reminding him of why humans never gave up, even in the face of impossible odds. One morning, while navigating a region of space dense with asteroid remnants, Leora turned to him. "Captain, I feel stronger. Not just physically, but emotionally. I think I am beginning to understand humans more than I imagined possible." Elias nodded. "That is because you are thinking, feeling, and acting. You are not just learning. You are becoming. That is what humans do. They grow, adapt, and face challenges together." She smiled, her eyes reflecting the distant stars. "Then I am glad I am here. With you." Elias felt a deep sense of hope. Humanity had always thrived on courage, ingenuity, and connection. And now, in the endless black of uncharted space, they were proving that those qualities could protect, inspire, and nurture life, even in a being like Leora. As they approached a small, habitable moon far from known human space, Elias and Leora prepared for a landing. The surface was rough but manageable, with breathable air and resources sufficient for temporary settlement. This moon would be their refuge, a place to rest, recover, and plan their next steps. "Captain," Leora said softly as they descended, "this place could be our home for now?" "Yes," he said, smiling. "A place to learn, explore, and grow. A place where we are safe for now." They landed on the moon, stepping onto solid ground after weeks of floating through the void. Elias inhaled the crisp air, feeling its weight and warmth. Leora followed, her expression filled with awe and wonder. "This is life," she said quietly. "This is what I wanted to experience." Elias nodded, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "And we will. Together." For the first time since leaving Elysium Station, they allowed themselves a moment of peace. But beyond the horizon, the universe stretched endlessly, full of challenges, discoveries, and opportunities. And together, human and hybrid, they were ready to face whatever came next. The habitable moon was quiet. Its surface was rocky, but patches of soft soil and small pools of water hinted at life beneath the crust. Captain Elias Rowe and Leora stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking a valley illuminated by the twin suns of the distant system. The air was fresh and cool, a stark contrast to the recycled atmosphere of the shuttle. For the first time in weeks, they could breathe without fear of immediate danger. "This place is beautiful," Leora said softly, her green eyes scanning the valley below. "It feels alive." Elias nodded. "It is. Life exists in many forms, often in places humans least expect. We've found a refuge, at least for now." She turned to him, her expression serious. "Captain, what happens next? Will we always be running?" Elias considered her question carefully. He had faced impossible odds many times, but this was different. This was not about surviving an asteroid field or navigating a nebula. This was about life, choice, and belonging. "Not always," he said finally. We choose our path from here. We can stay, explore, learn, or move on. The universe is vast, and there is much to see, much to discover. But wherever we go, we do it together. Her eyes brightened. Together, she repeated. That feels right. In the days that followed, Elias and Leora explored the moon, discovering hidden caves, strange flora, and small creatures that scuttled and flew across the terrain. Leora's curiosity was insatiable. She asked questions, tested theories, and learned about the delicate balance of ecosystems. Elias guided her. But he also let her experiment, knowing that mistakes, small failures, were part of true understanding. "See that plant?" Elias said one morning, pointing to a small, blue-leaved shrub. "It stores water in its leaves to survive dry periods." Humans often observe and learn from nature's adaptations. That is how we improve, innovate, and survive. Leora reached out to touch it gently. "So, humans grow by watching and understanding the world around them?" "Yes," he said. "And by making choices, even difficult ones. Choices define us." She smiled faintly. "Then I want to make my own choices, not just follow rules or instructions." Elias placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "That's the essence of life, and you are ready." But even in this quiet haven, the shadow of the Directorate loomed. Surveillance satellites, automated patrols, and other trackers were likely still searching. Elias knew they could not remain entirely hidden forever. They needed a plan, a decision about their future. One evening, as twin suns set over the horizon, casting the valley in soft gold and orange light, Elias and Leora sat together on a rocky outcrop. Leora turned to him, her expression a mixture of hope and seriousness. "Captain, what if they come for me?" Elias took a deep breath. "Then we will face them, just as we have faced everything else. But more importantly, we decide what we want, not them. You've learned, you've grown, and you have the right to live freely." She considered this, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "Then, I choose to stay. Here. With you. To learn, to live, to explore. Forever. If I can." Elias felt a rush of emotion. Humanity had always been defined by courage, trust, and the desire to protect what mattered. And now, in this being who was not fully human, he saw those same qualities reflected. "You don't have to be afraid," he said softly. "We'll face the future together. No one else can decide what your life means. Only you." Over the following days, Elias and Leora began to settle into a rhythm on the moon. They built a small shelter, using salvaged materials from the shuttle and natural resources. Leora learned to cultivate the land, collect water, and manage energy. Elias taught her about strategy, observation, and human ingenuity. But more than survival skills, he taught her about humanity itself. The need for connection, the value of compassion, and the strength that comes from hope. Leora absorbed it all, showing creativity and initiative, often suggesting improvements Elias had not considered. One evening, as they watched the stars shimmer in the clear sky, Leora turned to Elias. "Captain, I feel alive in a way I never imagined. Not just thinking, but feeling, experiencing, caring." Elias smiled. "That is what it means to live. You are learning faster than most humans do, in a lifetime. And you are proving something important. That courage, curiosity, and empathy are not limited to humans. They are universal." Her eyes sparkled. "Then maybe I am becoming something more than I was created to be." Elias placed a hand over hers. "Yes, and that is remarkable. That is life." But their peace was tested one morning. A distant signal flickered across the shuttle's sensors. An automated patrol, likely sent by the Directorate. Elias quickly assessed the situation. They were still far enough from detection, but the message was clear. Their presence had not gone unnoticed. "Captain," Leora said, her voice steady. "What do we do?" "We face it," Elias said calmly. "We are not running anymore. We choose our path. We decide our future. And we are prepared." Together, they monitored the patrol, analyzing patterns and calculating risks. Leora suggested a path that minimized exposure while using natural terrain for cover. Elias implemented the plan. The patrol passed without detecting them. "You did well," he said, impressed by her quick thinking. "We did it together," Leora said, smiling. Elias realized that this partnership, human and hybrid, was more than survival. It was proof of what humanity could achieve: courage, ingenuity, and trust overcoming fear and danger. That night, under the twin moons, Elias and Leora made a decision. They would remain on the moon, at least for now. They would create a home, explore, learn, and live fully. But they would also prepare for the unknown, the challenges the universe might bring. Leora turned to him. "Captain, thank you for teaching me, for trusting me, for believing in me." Elias shook his head, smiling. "No. Thank you for reminding me why humans reach for the stars. You've shown me that life, courage, and hope are not limited by form. And together, we are stronger than anything the universe can throw at us." Her smile widened. "Then we stay. Here. Together. Forever, if we can." Elias nodded, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. Humanity had always thrived on curiosity, bravery, and compassion. Now, in Leora, those qualities were alive in someone beyond human proof that the spirit of humanity could inspire, protect, and guide even the most unexpected life. As the twin suns set, painting the valley in gold, Elias looked at Leora and said softly, "Then we make this our home. Not just a place to survive, but a place to live, explore, and grow. Together." She reached for his hand. "Together," she said, echoing the word with hope and certainty. And so, under the vast, infinite sky of a distant world, they began their life anew. Two beings, one human, one more than human, facing the universe not with fear, but with courage, trust, and the unyielding desire to live fully. For Elias and Leora, the stars were no longer distant and cold. They were a promise, a canvas on which they could write the story of life, of courage, and of belonging. And in that moment, humanity, and what it meant to be truly alive, was stronger than ever.